Good evening from Independence Square. We're just outside Independence Hall, and today, July 4th, we mark the birth of the United States of America. Happy birthday, everybody. I'm Cynthia MacLeod, Superintendent of your National Park in Philadelphia, Independence National Historical Park, and I'm honored to welcome you to this special virtual 4th of July celebration. There is no more appropriate place to commemorate the 4th of July than here at Independence National Historical Park. I bring you greetings from all of the men and women of the park staff, and we would normally be welcoming thousands of you to this shrine of brick, granite, glass, and wood, where our country's founding documents were introduced, debated, adjusted, and signed. Just because no one is crossing its threshold these days does not mean that the message inherent in the promise of our Declaration of Independence is any less important. Our history is still real, relevant, accessible, and current. For many, Independence Hall is a shrine for self-government and freedom from tyranny. It was here at Independence Hall that a brave group of men from 13 colonies gathered to vote on an astonishing proposition to send to the King of England, that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. The founders put their lives on the line for a document that expressed their ideals. After many robust and fiery debates on a hot July day, they were finally ready. You know their names, people like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and John Hancock, and let's please remember the women beside them, people like Deborah Franklin and Abigail Adams, among others. The Colonists' Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, and the impact was felt around the world. 11 years later, the founders gathered again in Independence Hall. 55 delegates from 13 quite separate states discussed, debated, finally compromised to reach agreement on a document that created the framework of our government and our country, the Constitution of the United States. The government that they envisioned was radical for the time. They came up with ideas for a republic with very democratic principles that no one at that time was sure would work out. A government for the people, by the people. Our founders and those who have improved our government over the centuries were daring and brave. They thought not necessarily of themselves, but how they could participate and manage our experiment in democracy. They feared too much power in any one branch of government, especially the executive branch. They were people of science and learning. Our nation, our people have survived disease, adversity, and strife. Through courage and determination, strength and resilience, our people have persevered. Our founders started a government that is both fragile and strong, its success depending on we the people. And indeed, there has been much building necessary to achieve the true meaning of the phrase, all men are created equal. It was Frederick Douglass in 1852 who eloquently focused the nation on civil rights and abolition of slavery with his "What to the Slave is the 4th of July" speech, which he chose to give not on the 4th of July, but the 5th. Douglass pointed out that the celebration of independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not me. The 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. However, even Douglass drew encouragement from the declaration of the great principles it contains and the genius of American institutions, predicting that a change has now come over the affairs of mankind, as he called for an end to slavery. Yes, 13 years later, slavery was abolished in 1865 when the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was passed. But that did not bring justice to African Americans. Bringing justice is still underway with the help of the people's right to free speech and the freedom of the press. Those rights, enshrined in the First Amendment to the Constitution, are active today to push us to fulfill the promissory note of the Declaration of Independence. The protests and events of the past few weeks, centering on the phrase "Black Lives Matter," remind us that this promise of liberty and equality for all has failed for generations. We recognize that we and our nation are still a work in progress. Even as we in the National Park Service look back to bring the stories of the founders to the present, we look also to bring the stories of the pioneers of civic reform throughout the centuries and throughout all to the present for the ongoing march to justice. Congress in 1948 gave the National Park Service the responsibility to protect and preserve Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell, and all the sites and collections that comprise Independence National Historical Park. The story of independence is the story of the United States of America, and the story of every American, of each one of us. We in the Park Service have a firm commitment to the whole history of the American Revolution and the growth of our country, with voices from everyone, and as inclusively and accurately as possible, incorporating the stories of both free and enslaved Africans, indigenous people, and women. I hope you've seen the President's House exhibit at 6th and Market Streets or taken a tour of Independence Hall to see how the park has incorporated recent scholarship and how we reflect some stories of interest to us all as Americans and to visitors from around the world. The qualities exhibited by the founders and subsequent reformers, strength and courage, wisdom, determination and resiliency, and the principles of freedom, liberty, and democracy are part of our character as a nation, as a country, as a people, and as individuals. Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell stand as symbols of this national character to millions of people around the world. This character has helped our nation survive numerous challenges since 1776 and guides us today as we work together in pursuit of a more perfect union. Today, the 4th of July, is our opportunity to remember our history, celebrate our freedom, and the best of our nation. And what better place to do it than right here at Independence National Historical Park? We so look forward to welcoming you back in person very soon. In the meantime, let's cheer together 3 times. Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Happy birthday, happy 4th of July, everybody.